Welcome to the IoT Dev Chat. I'm Kenton Williston, the editor-in-chief of insight.tech. Every episode, I talk to an industry expert about the technology and business trends that matter for developers, systems integrators, and end users. Today, I'm talking to Laetitia Lim from Quividi about the ways the pandemic has changed digital signage and what systems integrators can do to adapt to the new environment. Laetitia, welcome to the show. What is it that Quevedi does exactly, and what is your role there?
Hi, Kenton. So first of all, Happy New Year to you and to all our auditors today. Wishing all of you a healthy and successful 2021. Thank you so much for inviting me today. It's a real pleasure to kick off the year with such an interesting conversation. And I hope that at the end of our discussion today, the audience will get some ideas on how to enable our digital signage industry to capture the new normal growth potential. So to answer your question, Quividi is the pioneer and world #1 audience and campaign intelligence platform for digital out-of-home and retail digital signage. We've been serving hundreds of customers, analyzing billions of shoppers every month across tens of thousands of screens. And my role in Quividi is to lead the team as their CEO. We've been working in more than 55 countries, with leading DOOH networks and retailers such as Simon Mall, URW, Pathison Outdoor, Cineplex in North America, or Harrods, Deleuze, Elan in Europe, Middle East, as well as Sentry, Clear Channel in Singapore, and 7-Eleven in Asia Pacific. So what marketers can do actually with our platform and data science is basically enabling them to test, measure, optimize, and deliver data-driven, contextualized content to best engage and convert audiences while respecting privacy. In other words, marketers use Quividi to turn DOOH and retail signage into a powerful medium, boosting engagement, traffic, and sales. And my role at Quividi is to lead the team as their CEO.
Excellent. Well, like you said, this is we're recording this very early in the year. 2020, of course, was a pretty challenging year for all of us with the coronavirus and everything else that was happening around the globe. And I think we're all pretty excited to get into a new year and see what new opportunities are in store for us. So how are you thinking about the digital signage landscape as we move into this new year?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 2020 with COVID has been a tough year, a real challenge, for our customers, no matter we talk about digital out-of-home media networks or retailers. Now, we always see challenges as opportunities as well. And I think our customers are all, looking for ideas and ways to actually recover their business, from the 2020 pandemic situation, and even further to capture actually the new growth potential. So we see actually that we think at Quividi that COVID has accelerated, a lot of trends in retail, and those trends actually were underlying. So, it's just that COVID has maybe made changes, happening in 6 months, whereas otherwise it would have happened, in few years. So that's the interesting part. So we think that retailers have actually now to accelerate their transformation. And when we are discussing with our client, we see actually, no matter you talk about digital out of home, so the media side, or you talk about retail, we see the following trends. In digital out of home, we definitely see that when, with this on and off situation, with lockdown, it's really critical for the media network out there to keep a constant, to keep their fingers on consumer pulse. And to do that, they do need real time. So we see real time, data as a key differentiator for the networks who really can offer those kind of data to advertisers, to basically convince those brand advertisers that it is worth for them to actually inject media investment into their networks versus all the media networks, because they have the proof of the reality of the audience, that the audience is back into their venues. And that is the first must evidence to provide to brands which have limited media budget, because everybody's dealing with a crisis. So being able to prove the reality of the audience is critical for digital for DOOH players. The second thing we think interesting is that actually they also need to deliver much more ROI. So when a brand used to spend $1, in the past in media, they maybe were expecting a $5 equivalent of ROI, but now they're expecting actually the same $5 by spending 0.5 or $0.8. And to do that, the media DOOH network have actually to deliver higher ROI than they used before. And one way to do that is to leverage real-time data to actually target relevant message on the go, so that those message are engaging better the audience in front of the screen. So that is, those are the two major trends we see on the DOOH side. When we talk about retail, we really see retailers reinventing or accelerating their digital transformation and moving really towards, kind of two extreme type of model. The first one is being really hyper convenient. So like, the Amazon Go. So really consumers, now when they go into like a food retail, they have already, browsed online, they know what they want to buy, and they just go with a strong intention and just go to buy the things they actually wanted to, and then come and then leave the store. So it's really this hyper convenient user experience that those retailers will have to deliver. On the other side, on the other extreme, we see another trend which is hyper experiential, like the Nike House of Innovation, where you really deliver a unique experience about your brand, so that the visitors can feel, what the brand is about, and that is also a major trend we see in retail. So that's basically the two extreme that we see in retail, and we see actually very interesting type of usage for this digital signage within those trends. Like I was talking about hyper convenient. We see actually the appearance of large screens deployment outdoor in curbside pickups or drive-through, where actually people are coming, they order online and they come to the venues to pick what they have ordered. So they either stay in their car, which is the case of curbside pickup, or they, have ordered, in QSR, and they just come in the drive-through to pick their orders. So that is an example of new signage, large deployment of signage a project we've been seeing as a result of COVID.
Yeah, I think those are all really good examples, and I should point out that we are working, and by the time our audience hears this, we'll have published an article talking about some of these very same trends, and I'd encourage all our listeners to head over to insight.tech to check that out. I want to start by exploring a little bit more deeply the digital out of home side of things. So when you say real time, I'm thinking of two elements here. So the first is being able, of course, to deliver content in real time, be able to manage what it is that's showing up on the displays at a moment's notice. But I think probably even more importantly than that is being able to determine the audience reactions to those displays in real time, so you can see what's working, what's not, and that you can make those kind of decisions about what to show the audience more intelligently. Do I have all that right? Anything I've missed there?
No, I think that's a very important. Add on you just did, Kenton, because definitely Quividi is all about measuring the attention, and the attention for us is the true measurement of engagement. When you think about digital out of home and public, those screens are in public spaces, right? It's crowded places, it's definitely. It's not like a one-to-one, experience like when you're in front of your laptop at home, right? It's a one-to-many type of communication. So it really does matter for a brand in such a busy environment to be able to really attract and engage with a person on the go, right? So for that, the true measurement of how a person is engaged when he or she, is on the go, is actually the attention time. So I think depending on which content is actually watched longer or not, you could really derive the level of engagement of that person. If you are marketers, and you could basically build leverage on data science, to really analyze, what type of content usually work best on what type of venues, on what type of screens location. And then you could derive from that some predictive model to help you in the future to actually optimize and improve further your marketing strategy.
Interesting. And is that something that people are starting to automate? I'm just thinking about everything you're saying about data science, and I'm starting to imagine going beyond just being able to assess what the audience reaction is and have a human being comb through the data to try to make an assessment, that perhaps some of this could be automated and even adapt in real time.
Yeah, I think definitely it's something at Quividi. Quividi, we've been the pioneer in the space. So we are now 14 years old. So we're not a startup, So we have like more than 60 billion data points as of now. And definitely by far the largest, anonymous video analytics database available on digital signage, in digital signage industry. And we've been actually analyzing, those data to try to extract those and build those predictive model. Okay, so definitely, like you said, the step one is to be able to measure what the performance, the past performance of a campaign in terms of attention time, for instance. But moving forward, it's also to learn from those past performance and result to try to predict what content will have the highest likelihood to be the most engaging for a specific demographic groups on a specific type of screens, locations, and venue type.
Interesting. And can you give me a practical example of what kind of predictions and what kind of recommendations might come out of this?
Yeah, so you could basically do the prediction in a quantitative way and a qualitative way. Okay, so the quantitative way is basically, the same way like online advertising is working, where you really do what we call real-time bidding and programmatic trading online. Today, digital out of home is still behind online for the programmatic trading. We are catching up. It's really growing double digit, as an industry. So really, programmatic is the highest growth potential for digital out of home now from now on and in the coming years. However, it's still a tiny part of the revenue. Okay, so if you were able to actually measure, what happened like 1 second or tenths of a second just before, on that specific screens, you could basically assume that those type of audience, those number of people will be there, and then you could decide to actually push the content. A brand could decide to say, okay, because I want actually to my campaign to reach out to this type of millennials in this type of venue, and I want to reach this number of impressions. Go there and basically look for all those places and deliver in real time my campaign to those places which are actually matching the criteria I just mentioned. And that could be done, almost in real time. So that is a way to use it in the quantitative way. In the qualitative way, you could think about, once you analyze campaigns after campaigns, so at the very granular level, the attention time for each content which has been played on each screens at different time of the day, different day of the week, and different, months during the year, you could come out with basically trends to tell you that, okay, usually millennials, male, young millennials, male gender, like to basically engage much more with this type of content, with this type of headline, with this type of video type of format. etc. On that specific screens in that specific venues. Whereas more, senior people above, 45 years old, male, tends to prefer to engage and watch longer this type of content on those type of screens at this specific time of the year or of the day.
So, Laetitia, I have to tell you, just before we recorded this podcast was my birthday, and I'm really glad you said an old person is 45. I only turned 44, so I still have one more year of youth.
Did I say old? I'm sure. It's
So this leads me to an assumption here about why it is that ROI has become, under so much pressure. Because of course, if you're in an online environment, that there's a long-standing trend of that being driven down, down, down. And I assume what's happening here is that the digital out-of-home market is much in the same way it's following some of the online patterns in terms of having programmatic advertising. The ROI crunch is also following some of the same patterns. Is that right?
Yes, because actually, when you look at digital out of home, actually, if when you look at out of home and the way advertising have been sold, right, in out of home space, I mean, it used to be sold by, okay, I'm buying for 2 weeks campaigns on those screens, and basically how much impression you are going to give me for these 2 weeks, right, and this is how much I'm going to pay, right. Now, with technologies coming in the offline world, it's actually enabling those screens to actually sell in a much more proactive way, like online is doing. And what we are hoping is that it enables actually out of home thanks to digital out of home, to basically capture, more media budgets, right, from the online, media advertising budget. And to do that, digital out of home have to be much more data driven. So, like you said, it really needs to be able to deliver more measurable and more ROI, in the sense that it's not anymore about impression. Tomorrow, and we're seeing it already today with some of our clients who are at the forefront of that. You could imagine to be able to buy audiences. Right, the same way like on Facebook or Google, you said, okay, I want to actually have this campaign to be displayed for people of a certain age, certain lifestyle, a certain purchasing power. You could also think that in the physical world, thanks to technology, like us, you could actually buy audiences and not only overall impressions.
Yeah, so this is a really good point. And, I think this is a perfect example of sort of the good news, bad news phenomena, where the bad news, or the challenge at least, is that there is a lot of pressure to demonstrate higher levels of ROI. But the good news is the market size is very large. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if I recall correctly, the amount of ad spending on digital out of home is like in the single digits relative to online ad spending. So there's just a huge upside potential in terms of the amount of revenue that's available. And I think it's pretty compelling too, right? Because you don't have ad blockers in real life. You have a very different kind of intent when people are out and about, if they're browsing around on a website or what have you. It's a signal, but it doesn't tell you everything you might want to know. Whereas if you're out in the real world, you know exactly where this person is, and you kind of get a sense of what they might be up to, and, their age and gender and things like this. So you, in some ways, have a more valuable data set than you would have online. So I think that's all very exciting from the perspective of an advertiser to have that sort of opportunity available.
Yeah, I definitely think that, in terms of brand safetiness, when you think about, fraud and all those, issues that's happening, which have been happening in the online world, definitely you don't have, such thing in the offline world, because you are dealing with real human beings, right? And actually being able to capture their intention. Again, like I said, we talk about busy environment where people are on the go. So when you manage to have them stopped and watch a screen, and engage with that for a certain number of time, that's really a strong actually proof of engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. And that leads me to talk about the other piece of this, which is how retailers are using digital signage in new ways to bring in a new sense
Mm.
of convenience and a new sense of experience. And in particular, what I'm thinking about here is how, with the pandemic, and I'm betting this will last into the future for some time, maybe permanently. People are tending not to head out to be active in the world unless they have something very specific in mind that they want to do. So, for retailers to get additional spending from those consumers, they can't follow some of the past practices, like, put something really enticing on their end caps because people are not looking to spend a lot of time dwelling in the store, for example. So there needs to be a different approach to give the customer, the sort of exciting experience, to incentivize them to do additional purchases and so forth.
Yeah, definitely. We see that consumer behavior in store have changed, right? Like I said earlier, COVID has, unfortunately, in some extent, accelerated online, e-commerce, development, right? So there are people who actually were not shopping online who started to shop online during COVID, and we believe they're going to keep those habits. Okay,
Yes.
so definitely retailers are under pressure to more than ever. They are competing against online. Now we see digital signage inside the store as actually one of the tools they can leverage on to differentiate themselves from the online, e-commerce type of user experience. So what do I mean by that? Is that actually digital signage went through many phases, over the past 25 years. And we see that we are now in the phase where we are entering what we call adaptive signage area. And this area of adaptive signage is actually smart screens. So the screens should not only be a way to play content, which honestly is 90% of the usage today in retail. Okay, so screens are there, and basically is making it's easier to basically change content, whereas before, we have a paper light box, and then it's, we could not change content so easily, or have different contents, on the same, piece, during, on the same day, right? Because it cannot change so fast. And having screens instead of the static billboard enables definitely to manage the content in a more, in an easier way, definitely. But for us, we see that as a more like a logistics operational benefit, right? Now we think that it's time where actually screens have to deliver much more smarts so that they can be really integrated into the physical customer experience delivered in store. And to do so, the screens should be able to switch from a one-to-many to a one-to-one communication type whenever it is relevant, and being able to switch back from one-to-one to one-to-many discussion, communication whenever it is relevant. Because the screens, like imagine you have a kiosk at, inside a food retailer. That kiosk at some moment is basically, you have many people watching, in front of that screen, but you also have some moments during the day or during the week where actually there's only one person in front of the screen. So you could imagine actually a screen smart enough to basically be able to tailor-made to some extent, the experience that the screen is providing to that audience, depending on who is in front of that screen, right?
Yeah, so I want to dig into that a little bit deeper. So we're talking about a one-to-one. So of course there's the opportunity to target someone based on their demographics. But are you also talking about something that's tied to that specific individual? Like, oh, I see that this is Laetitia, so I'm going to show her something specific to her interests, or is this more just restricted to demographics? Are we talking about things that stay anonymous, or where's the
Yeah.
state of the art here?
Yeah. So I think there's different. I mean, so there's different piece of the answer here. First, definitely, I mean, Quividi, we are privacy by design. So it's really something we care. A lot about, meaning that we are really all about anonymous video analytics. So we do not keep any biometric information. So we will not know that Laetitia is in front of the screen. Okay, we will know that there is a female of a certain age in front of the screen, but we will not know that it is Laetitia, and we don't want to know that. Okay, and that's enabled us, to be able to actually operate in public venues and in countries with very strong privacy regulations like GDPR in Europe. So it's really something that we care a lot about. This is the first thing I like to say. The second thing is definitely, if on the screens you want to have some content that are meant for your VIP, your members, people who are actually in your CRM database, you could have QR code shown on the screen, like, it's happening a lot in Asia, okay, where actually people with their smartphones could basically tap on the screen and then get, special promotions or whatever being pushed to their smartphone. Or if they really want to, they are on a one-to-one, experience with that, like self kiosk ordering, they are giving you they are giving by tapping on the screens the consent to basically the retailers to access their information and propose based on their history of purchases, for example, some telemed promotion on that digital signage screens. So that is also possible, provided, the audience in front of that screen is giving a consent.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the self-checkout kiosk is a great example where, of course, it makes sense to customize it for that specific interaction. I want to ask, we talked a little bit about the data science and AI and all these other things and the role they're playing in the digital out-of-home context. How does that work in a retail environment context? Is there something that's different about those two contexts, or are they fairly similar?
I think the principle and the rationale behind are similar. Now the usage and the applications, differ, right? Because like imagine you are in QSRs. So in retail, you are QSR. You could really have actually the screens on, in your drive-through connected, having informations connected to the operations inside your kitchen. And depending on, the stock you have, the preparation time you have, you could decide also to push actually a certain type of promotion, certain type of menus, to design some promotions for some specific menus that you have overstock for, in order to actually help you to reduce your stock and your costs and increase your margin, right? To push the sales on some specific items based on, information you have in the back of your kitchen, for instance.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a great example. And I'm wondering too, more broadly, whether it's digital out of home or a retail environment, do you have some examples of specific customers that have implemented some of this leading edge technology and how it's helped them?
Yeah. So for example, when we were talking about real-time triggering of content, in order to be able in a busy environment like a shopping centers to actually show the right content to the right audience. This is something that we've been, running very regularly. We've been running these kind of campaigns very regularly with our customers, Sentry. In Australia, Sentry is the number one shopping centers in Australia and New Zealand. So the 100% of their shopping centers are equipped with Quividi technology for more than 5 years. And basically, we've been running regularly campaigns with their clients, so advertisers, which also sometimes happen to be their retailers, so tenants inside their shopping centers, to basically deliver higher ROI triggered campaigns. So it has become, a kind of systematic with them, for instance. We're doing that as well with URW in US. So Westfield centers in US as well, because they're 100% equipped with Quividi's technology. Another example of usage is URW in US. They actually, since last July, they were the first media network in US to actually launch a guaranteed impression model, where when a brand is willing to spend advertising money into Westfield US, they actually the brand is guaranteed to obtain the number of impressions that they wanted to achieve. Otherwise, Westfield will compensate that by adding more airtime. And that has actually a lot of success with brands, because like I said, brand during COVID, they really look for the proof of your audience and higher ROI. So being able to guarantee the ROI is something very powerful. And they're using our data for that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So one of our favorite little haunts, I've got a young daughter, and I like to take her into San Francisco, and we'll just kind of have some daddy-daughter time, just rolling around, exploring the town. So when we're kind of back to more normal times, I'm going to have to go check out the Westfield San Francisco and see if I can find some of these displays and see what they show us.
Yeah.
So it's pretty clear to me, why the end customers would benefit from these technologies. But I'm wondering if I'm looking at this market as a systems integrator, where there might be challenges either in selling this technology or even just putting it together and deploying these advanced technologies. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, that's a very, important point. System integrators are definitely, one of the key stakeholders and key partners for us in digital signage. In the digital signage space, they definitely. So with this COVID environment, retailers, so end users, so their client have been definitely under pressure. So whenever it is question about rolling out a signage project and about budget, they're really going to basically reconsider more seriously about, okay, is it worth to spend, the money, right? So that's definitely something on top of their mind. So that would mean for SIs that they have to really demonstrate the business value of deploying signage project. And I think that's to some extent a little bit differ from previous years, because a few years ago, it was really logical, and it was really a progress to change, static boards by screens, right? It's really bringing innovation to the retail space. So that was the first phase of growth. But now, a lot of actually signage project has to be renewed. It's getting into a second phase of cycle, and the discussion now is more about, okay, I've been rolling out a signage for 5 years. What's the ROI? What does it bring to my business? And the operation people in retail who actually got the budget at that time maybe is now challenged by their marketing or sales team about actually what is the ROI to what extent those screens are helping me to increase my sales inside the store. So I think that is the new type of conversation that's happening before COVID in the recent years, and getting accelerated with COVID. So I think the challenge of SI is definitely to work with software providers like us to demonstrate that actually, if you are capable to that you can leverage on technologies, real-time triggering capabilities, you can leverage on the audience data to understand better your consumers and your visitors, so that you can drive better sales by actually providing a better customer experience with more engaging content and a more effective communication on the screens to those visitors. So I think SI has to embrace as well this this data, has to put forward actually all those data points, and participate into educating retailers about actually what kind of usage they could, make of the digital signage of the screens, and not only just playing content on those screens.
Yeah, and to that point, I know you offer a thing called the Quividi Data Academy, and
Yes,
also Kickstarter kits. And again, I'll
exactly.
shameless plug here. We're covering these both in the article that we published on insight.tech, so go check that out. But could you give me the quick overview of what those are and how they help systems integrators?
Yeah, so that's actually really with the help of Intel, we come up with this brand new offer to basically really help uh, system integrators to decrease the entry barrier to run a POC, a proof of concept, and to really go hand in hand with them to educate the end users, so in this case the retailers, about the value of deploying screens in store. So it's a project which is meant to basically reduce the entry cost of running a POC, and we will assist the SI in that project by providing free also analytics report, and to actually show to the retailers what are the business value they could actually extract out of Quividi's audience data.
Yeah. So in other words, it's like a low risk way for
Yeah.
the end customer to try out this technology. They're not making a financial commitment,
Yes.
and they can try it out
Yes.
and see for themselves. Yes, this really does what Quividi says it does.
Yes. And it's really to invite them to join and start together with us the data journey.
Perfect. Well, we're getting close to the end of our time together, so I just wanted to make sure I gave you a chance. If there's any question I overlooked that you wish I'd asked you, that I gave you a chance to share your brilliance with our audience.
Thank you so much. Actually, we really, I'm at Quividi, we are bullish and positive for 2021. So I really wanted to deliver that last positive message to our auditors today, and 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 how do we translate? I mean, this positive mind for 2021 within Quividi's team is basically we are really excited to basically to launch so the starter, the academy, and the starter kit, the Kickstarter with Intel, and more broadly we are actually launching a brand new offer to discover the benefits of Quividi's data, and that is basically the IQ Pre-Flight, which is a series of consulting and resources for free to basically educate the audience about our data, and to help our client and partners to become more knowledgeable about that. And then the second offer we have is IQ Passport. This is a way to invite clients and new prospects to embark together with us into the data journey, starting with the POC, which will be supported by our data scientist, and like I said, will be eligible to our Intel Quevedi co-founded Kickstarter program. And the second nice announcement we have is we're really excited in Q1 to launch our new functionalities about vehicle and body detection, which will enable Quividi to actually tap into all those new business opportunities that I shared today about the outdoor, curbside pickups, drive-through, all those big outdoor signage projects as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. Very exciting. And just kind of to wrap that up and put a bow on it, there's so much action happening in this space. And I think for systems integrators, what's kind of the key takeaway for me from this conversation is that Quividi and Intel together are there to support you, not only with educational materials and information that will help you convince your end customer of the value of these offerings, but even, hardware, cameras, potentially video players that can be provided for this no cost proof of concept. So there's a really amazing launch pad to take 2021 in a really positive direction. And I think that's fantastic. So with that, Laetitia, I just wanted to thank you for joining us. Really appreciate hearing your insights.
Thank you so much.
And thanks to our listeners for joining us. If you enjoyed listening, please support us by subscribing and rating us on your favorite podcast app. This has been the IoT Dev Chat Podcast. We'll be back next time with more ideas from industry leaders at the forefront of IoT design.